Hello, my friends. Jacob's here once again, and so are all of you. I'm so happy that we're all together again. Isn't this nice? I've been banging them out one after the other. It just feels like I need to do show after show after show because there's so much going on in the world, especially with what's going on over the pond there. King Charles, he's about to go through the whole coronation ritual. That's where you become a king, where you sit on a magic stone above it. It's called the Stone of Scone, or the Stone of Destiny. Goes by a lot of names. My favorite, of course, is Jacob's pillow, because that's where it originated. It was the stone that Jacob slept on where he had the dream. But this stone has a lot of there are other stories that are attached to it. Some say that, King Arthur and the legend of the sword has to do with the stone. Some say it has to do with the Fountain of Youth. Others say that it has to do with the Ben stone. Can empower leaders and do all sorts of weird things. Very strange that all of this would be going on today. When there's Twitter and all sorts of other things and people seem to lack the ability to have faith and more. Why is there so much to say about this stone? Why are they talking today about the Stone of Destiny, also known as the Stone of Scone, which is going to be moved from Edinburgh Castle of London for the coronation of King Charles? When the Queen was coronated, she sat above that stone back in 1953. Do you know that stone dates all the way back to King David? He was put on his throne back then. Now there are prophecies, there are mysteries, there are things about Jacob's pillow, Jacob's stone, that is very interesting, and I think that all of you need to do a little research. But don't worry, I did the research for you. I did 2 videos, part 1 and part 2, back in 2019, where I began this search for the Stone of Destiny and what it really meant. And what it led me down was a path that was incredibly interesting, because they say that it's over there, but at one point it was stolen. Many say that it was replaced with a forgery, a fake. Some people believe that it's right there in New York City, right down the street from where I live. But the mystery is palpable, and it's important for us all to understand this because it's spiritual in nature. The Stone of Destiny, the stone that Jacob slept on, that where he dreamed of the ladder right behind me, that is what this is all about. But the mystery is far beyond what you think. So, I'm going to get you ready for my next show, which is a live stream, which has to do with maybe the Crusades coming back today. A holy war maybe is going on in the name of the beast. I actually tweeted that out. I want you to watch this. It's going to blow you away. And it's going to really open your eyes to the fact that there's something going on today. Something really big. So don't be like every other person who buries their head in the sand. Be a person who digs for the truth. The treasure is hidden in a field. Look for it. The treasure, it's within you. There is such a great treasure within you. And maybe learning about the Stone of Destiny, the Stone of Scone, Jacob's pillow will open your eyes to that. So, enjoy part 1 and part 2. Believe me, you probably haven't seen it. And if you have seen it, you need to see it again. Hello, my friends. Jacob is here once again. Jacob Israel, that is. To my friends who know me, I'm glad that you pressed play. I'm glad you're spending some time with me. I hope you're okay with me coming to you from space. I had to do the virtual set today. You'll understand why at the end of the program. It's an interesting program. This is a crazy program. This is going to be one that people are going to be talking about for a while type of a program. So I hope you're ready, because we're talking about my pillow. Yeah, the Stone of Destiny. This is a very, very famous stone that has been the seat of many kings and has brought and coronated many, many very, very important, famous, powerful people over the years. Was the throne of King David. Was the throne all the way down. This story is an insane one. And it has a lot to do with me, which is even crazier. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to tell a story about how the Stone of Destiny was revealed to me, and why I think for this program, you all better be buckled up. We begin our story thousands of years ago with a younger brother named Jacob. The twins. I did a show on Jacob and Esau. If you want to catch up, check it out. Story goes, Jacob was sent from home. He was told to go find a job. And as he was on his way to go work for his uncle Laban, he's all alone. He finds himself in a certain place, just like we all find ourselves in a certain place. And he gets tired. And he looks around, as was the custom back in the day if you're in the wilderness, right? You look for a stone and you use it as a pillow. It's exactly what Jacob did. It's called Jacob's pillow, Jacob's stone. That stone today is used as the seat for many coronations, going back thousands of years. That stone, there is a prophecy about, that when the Messiah, when the chosen comes and sits on that stone or comes near that stone, that the stone will cry out. It's a prophecy about the world turning over to just a bunch of imagination, a bunch of idolatry, a bunch of lies. Now, why on earth would a goofy stone be held in such high regard? Why would it be so symbolic and so important? The fact that nations could go to war over this simple stone. It was just a stone he was just used to rest his head on that night when he was tired. Jacob, when he was on that stone, he had a dream. That's where we get Jacob's ladder from. And in this dream, he saw a ladder. He saw a ladder that started at the earth that went all the way up to heaven. And he saw the angels of God ascending and descending upon that place. When Jacob woke up, it was a huge revelation for him. He understood that God was in this place. At first, he was terrified. But at that moment, you know my video, I did the video called Take the Vow. It's about Jacob's vow. In that moment, it's a moment that I've had, a moment that I hope you have. In that moment, when you realize that God is in this place, this certain place where you are right now in your life, in that certain place. For Jacob back then, it was a place called Luz, which means almond tree, which is interesting. That place was renamed by Jacob. He called it Bethel, which meant the house of God, because surely God was there. And in that dream, God said that I'll do this and I'll do that. And Jacob said, yeah, I'll do it as long as you take care of this, you take care of that, and everything else. But it was in that moment when he woke up that he dedicated his life to God. Just like I did. Just like I hope you have. And he said, I'm going to serve you for all the days of my life. Just like I have. Hopefully just like you have. When Jacob woke up, he poured oil all over that stone and he anointed it, right? Symbolic of wisdom, that stone. I've written on this. You can go to my website and see, but this is where the story takes an interesting turn. So this stone became sort of iconic, right? This stone was where Jacob first, he dedicated his life to God. It was a very important moment. This stone was then carried off because it was the place. It was as important as the Ark of the Covenant, which held the Spirit of God. In fact, the two were together. So that stone, what they did was they took these iron rods, these little circular rings like this, and they attached it to this stone, the sandstone. They put a little bar in it and they carried it everywhere they went. And this stone followed all of the descendants of Jacob. This stone became known as Jacob's pillow or Jacob's pillar. And it was upon this stone that David, King David himself, was coronated as king. Now, many years would go by, and of course, Israel always returned to their idolatrous ways where they forgot the truth of God. They left the truth of God for the lies of the land, for the beast system, right? They forgot. They forgot all about that vow that Jacob made at that pillar, on that pillow, that every king and every important figure was coronated on. They forgot. Pharaohs forgot about Jacob, and Israel ended up in servitude again until Moses would come along, and so on and so on and so on, where we see this cycle of Israel, being sent into captivity and then being freed from captivity and then sinning again and then ending up in captivity again. So what ended up happening was Babylon the Great, King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, at the time, Jeremiah the prophet was the main man. And see, what happened was when Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon invaded, they killed off all the male heirs. There was nobody left, but there was favor. Jeremiah had found favor in the sight of the powers that be. He ended up taking Zedekiah's daughters, and he took them as well as his scribe, and they fled. And then it was like a storm, and they ended up, historical record says, towards England, towards Ireland, indeed. In fact, that stone landed in Ireland, eventually. And so did the line of kings from King David. That in fact, that there is a prophecy that the Messiah would come from this area. The lost, hear this, the lost tribes of Israel. The lost, those that forgot the truth, those that forgot the vow, those that forgot about the stone. The stone, by the way, which I didn't know anything about until just a couple of days ago, and now I'm speaking about it as if it was my stone indeed. So here you have this one stone, this sandstone, that Jacob, many thousands of years, had a dream on, had us become so important that to this day, kings and queens in England and Scotland and more are coronated on it. And guess what? This stone, it's on display right now. People have forgotten, though, its significance. People have forgotten the vow that was taken. People have forgotten about Jacob's pillow. You see, bloodlines are a big thing in Scripture. Okay? Being a blood relative. Jesus was traced through the line of David, the bloodline of David. If you read the Bible, there are big time descriptions of, Adam gave birth to so-and-so, who gave birth to so-and-so, all the way down to Jesus. Now, what happens somewhere along the line when Nebuchadnezzar comes over is these bloodlines, they get intermingled. Like God says, you know what? I'm going to mingle them with the these guys and the that guys, and actually he even says beasts at some point. But it's symbolic about how the tribes of Israel, they end up lost. They end up forgetting who they are. They forget who they are. In fact, in the book of Tephi, who was one of Zedekiah's children, who ended up becoming called the Queen of Israel and the Queen of Ireland. who ended up over in Ireland where the Danites were basically seated. The tribe of Dan, the Dan. The Danites, they actually are intermingled among the population there. And so the Davidic line of chosen servants of God could come from Ireland as well. Now, why is all this so interesting? Let me tell you how I got to thinking about the Stone of Destiny. It all started about 2 days ago when I was driving in my car, and I had a memory of when I was about 13 years of age. I went to this Catholic church called St. Roch's, and they had this, this thing where they take the poor kids and for a week's little retreat. And there were counselors there. I had a counselor named Abby. She was like 19 years old. She had red hair. She was very cute. And I had kind of like a little 12 to 13-year-old boy crush on her. At the end of the retreat, all the counselors got together. And what they had to do was they had to do something that would sacrifice and show their love for the people that they were counseling and teaching and helping and encouraging in their faith. Some of them went a week without having sugar. Some of them didn't have coffee in the morning. Some of them didn't tie their shoes. Abby did something interesting. And it didn't hit me until just the other day as I was driving in the car, because as I said before all this, I didn't know anything about the Stone of Destiny. I didn't know anything about this stone that has gone from all the way from Bethel, the house of God, back in Israel to where it is today, in Edinburgh, in a castle. I had no idea about any of this stuff until I had that thought about that palanca. That was the name of it. How goofy. The palanca that Abby did for me. She slept for a week with a stone in her pillowcase. Isn't that interesting? All these years later, I think of that. Symbolically, it's amazing, okay? But I've talked, of course, on the channel before about the many interesting, significant similarities of Jacob, Israel's life, the patriarch, and my life, as it were. The truth is, just like Jacob, I went to work for Laban, a sheep shearer. I was a shepherd, if you will. I was the head writer for this Christian network. And just like Jacob Israel's not my last name. It was a name that I was inspired to use. Now, all of these things, when I chose the name Israel, because I wanted it to be like a parable of all of us. I wanted everybody to understand that, who you are at first in the world is not who you become, right? I'm not just Jacob. I am God's champion. I am Israel. I'm the one who prevails. And I knew years ago when I was working for that Christian network, when I was working for Laban, that I would, go by that name, Jacob Israel. And now you Google me and I come up as quickly as the patriarch comes up. So this story of the stone was significant to me because look, the similarities are just stunning, right? I'm born June 11th. I'm a Gemini. Jacob was a twin. I know that's reaching, right? Okay, that's fine. My backyard when I was young, I was in pre-kindergarten, was a project called Adam's Garden. Putting 11 new units into Adam's Garden, which is in Old Greenwich, right on the border of Stamford. And it was like my backyard. I lived on the border of Adam's Garden. Significant. It's strange. I was the head writer for World Wrestling. Strange, right? My name is Jacob. Strange. It's a coincidence, and I feel a connection to this name, to this story. My daughter's name is Shiloh. When I named her Shiloh, I had no idea of the prophecy of Shiloh that Jacob gave on his deathbed to his children. About how Shiloh would come, which is interesting because it's all tied into this stone of destiny. Now, whereas Jacob wrestled a man and overcame and was given a new name, I actually literally wrestled a wrestler named Angel. And he actually ended up with a torn hamstring. I choked him out. That was the last time that I did television for wrestling. Isn't that weird? And it didn't hit me until I was on the plane coming home. I literally wrestled an angel. It's cool, right? It gets weirder. Okay, so my novel, which you're all going to hear about soon because it's about to be published yet again, it takes place in a town called Bethel. Bethel, the house of God. I started writing that novel when I was in college. And I read the Bible and all that, but I had no idea. It is strange also that I worked for Laban for 7 years and then left. And now it's been like 14 years, almost to the day, Christian television. It's very bizarre. All of the similarities. The fact that when Jacob left, he ended up with a much greater flock of speckled sheep. If you ever took a look at my network's YouTube channel, it's very strange that here I am 2 years later with this amount of people. So there is so much wonderful symbolism in my life, in your life, in all of our lives, that if you actually just take a moment, you'll understand that these stories are our stories as well. Because as Ecclesiastes says, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, here's the truth about me, right? Like, I really want to serve God. I'm not foolish enough to say that I know, because I don't know. I just know that it's important to love and it's important to seek and it's important to follow your inspiration. And so I followed my inspiration and it led me on an interesting little path. I started thinking about those bloodlines again. And I thought, well, how interesting would it be if perhaps I was related? What if I did like an Ancestry.com or a 23andMe and all of a sudden I find out I'm related? That thought came into my head and I go, well, that can't be because I'm not from Israel. None of my family's from Israel. And that's why the revelation of this stone of destiny, notice that I say destiny because it's something that's predetermined, that the stone would prove that perhaps I could be, that perhaps you could be. Because I'm from Ireland. My father, who I never met my biological father. Actually, I got his ashes. I did a show about that, remember, 2 years ago? I met a bunch of other brothers that I didn't know that I had either. Well, interesting enough, he's from Ireland. Ireland. And it gets weirder than that. Because I think to myself, well, in the scriptures, Jacob, he gives himself to God near this stone, and then he's called back to that stone again many, many years later. And I say, well, that's strange too. And then I remember, when I was 15 years of age, I visited Ireland. Yeah, that's right. Strange. Stranger still is that I was so alone most of the time I just read the Bible. Sort of dedicated my life to God there. All of a sudden it all starts coming back to me. Then I find out that they say the Blarney Stone is the other half of the stone. Yeah, there's a belief that part of the Stone of Destiny is actually the Blarney Stone, which people try to come over and kiss. That was the stone that I was supposed to kiss. And guess what power the Blarney Stone gives a person? The gift of gab. The gift of gab. I'm telling you, there's something going on here. So I get a kick out of thinking about this. I'm going, this would be an adventure. This would be an awesome little documentary. This would be crazy. I did mention the fact that my daughter was born on 9/11, right? And that Mars showed up on the day that she was born some 15 years ago, right? I just did the shows about how Mars once again showed up. Well, 15 years ago, my daughter Shiloh was born. Mars was like hanging right over our head. I actually wrote about it in my novel. I said, September 10th, Mars hangs closer to the Earth than it has in 60,000 years. It reminds men of the light that led men from the east to a child in a manger. Could well be a sign of things to come. So imagine my surprise when 15 years later, that Mars shows up once again, the exact same time. It's interesting, right? More interesting is the fact that this stone is going to cry out for the leader. You see, the prophecy is that God has, through the bloodlines, God has a leader. Someone who will bring Israel to repentance. Someone who will remind people of the true and living God. Someone who will show people that God is real. So as I'm studying this feverishly and I'm looking up everything I could look up about the stone of destiny, Jacob's pillow, I find that this stone could be the stone that the builders rejected, Christ. This stone, and I'm not saying that the stone is literally Christ, I'm saying that the stone is symbolic of that God was in that place, that was within Jacob himself. And that this stone that was consecrated was there to be a reminder that when people forgot, that when people left the truth of God for the lies of the world and the lies of the beast system, right? When the beast is ruling, that stone once again would cry out and that people would be called to repentance. The fact that this stone, that the remnant, that the lost tribes of Israel, that there could be Scottish and English and Irish and Spanish and anything, that there could be, that they were scattered. You see, that's what the scriptures say, was that Israel was scattered to the ends of the earth. The lost tribes of Israel finding themselves once again, like the passage in the book of Tephi, when Jacob comes to know his birthright, therein shall lie his boasting. When he understands who he really is, that's when he can boast at the stone. So, in the story of Jacob, about halfway through his life, right about where I am right now, he left Laban, he has his flocks, things are good, right? But he still feels like he's in the wilderness, right? He still feels like he may be at odds with his older brother, his past, if you will. At that moment, he cries out to God and he says, yeah, I know you have a purpose for me, but look at me. Look at me. What do I got? I got nothing. I'm 2 camps, right? I got 2 families. It's my family. It's a blended family. It's interesting. Yeah, my first wife left me and I raised my 2 children, Noah and Shiloh, on my own. And then I got to raise Anthony as well because we both have custody. And then we have Ethan. So it's like we have 2 tribes ourselves. But that at this point in my life, I'm like, Lord, really? Yeah, I know that there's a purpose for me. I know there's a purpose for us all, and that's what I talk about. See, my channel, I'm hoping that I can encourage all of you in your faith, that you can see me step out in faith and talk about these amazing and incredibly strange things and step out and believe something that is impossible. But if it is true, could you imagine what could change? So I'm thinking to myself, why not visit this stone? Why not find a way to get my butt to Scotland so that I can actually be there in the presence and bring you along with me? Show you that, teach you a little bit about that history and what it really means. Because this thing, look at it, it's paraded around.
The first glimpse of the stone back home. A ceremonial journey marked its return 7 centuries after being taken by the English. A symbol of nationhood to thousands who watched.
This is not a little thing. This is probably, it's called one of the most prized possessions of Scotland. This thing that I didn't even know existed until a couple of days ago. This thing that could be the stone that crushes the toes of that beast system. Remember the stone? This stone that was not made by man's hands. It was just there. That's been carried all the way down. And this stone that is chosen, the king, that is going to cry out, the prophecy in the end when people have turned away, that the stone would cry out. How cool would it be? We get there, right? Take a little video record. There's an earthquake. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But it's cool to think about these things. We have to have faith in more. We have to understand that maybe God does have a plan for all of us. And that's why I'm thinking, this stone of destiny could in fact be part of what this channel is all about. Getting us there, taking on a new adventure. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'm going to go there because I got to tell you something. I don't really have the cash for it. That's for sure. But I will tell you, I already talked to a travel agent. That's the truth. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And on Wednesday, I'm finding out because I got to tell you something. I think that life should be an adventure. And why not? For some reason, I am now known as Jacob Israel, right? For some reason, I hear in my head this memory, and I think about that palanca, that stone that she slept on. And then I find all of this out. And the prophecy of the days that we're in. Now look, the bottom line is, I'd be lying to you. I wrote about it years ago. I said that when I turned around 45, people would start to know who I am. I've been very clear that I believe that the channel is going to get much, much bigger. And I've said for many years, long before I had all of you supporting me and helping me and liking and sharing and passing it around, before any of that, I knew I had a plan. And part of that plan was helping people to ask for God themselves, to say, teach me the truth no matter what the cost. So I want to go there, and I want to encourage all of you by bringing you all with me. And I'm hoping I'm going to get there, and I'm hoping it's going to happen. But the stone of destiny is calling. Jesus said in his prophecy, he said that if people wouldn't return to the truth, that if people wouldn't praise God, that if people lost their faith, if people were just too busy like back in the day, that even the stones would cry out. I think that's cool. And I love each and every one of you, and I hope that you do. Share the video around. Tell a friend. Learn a little bit more about all this stuff because it's cool. It's very, very cool. Thousands of years ago, a young shepherd named Jacob left Beersheba, which means a sevenfold oath, and set out to find a wife. When he reached a certain place in his life, he stopped and he fell asleep, taking a stone as a pillow. As Jacob slept, he dreamed of a ladder, a stairway to heaven, resting on earth where angels were ascending and descending upon the place where he slept, God at the top, saying that I will be with you for the rest of your life. When Jacob woke up, he understood that God was in that place, and he understood that he made a covenant with him, and that a great nation would come from his own life. So he made a pillar, a monument to this moment, and he named it Bethel, which means the house of God. Well, this stone, this pillar, has followed Israel and the descendants of Israel. There's a picture of it right there. And for thousands of years, royalty has been crowned upon it. Goes by many names, the Stone of Scone, Leah Fell, and also the Holy Grail.
Royal occasion for a symbol of Scottish sovereignty. The Stone of Scone was used in the coronation of Scotland's ancient kings, and the procession along Edinburgh's Royal Mile brought 10,000 people onto the streets as it was escorted to the castle. An RAF flypast added to the spectacle as the parade continued.
The stone has been sought by many people for thousands of years. King David was crowned upon it. Many think today it actually resides in Scotland.
The formal handover took place in the Great Hall of Edinburgh Castle before an audience of 800 dignitaries. It was conducted by the Queen's representative, Prince Andrew.
I now, therefore, on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen, place the Stone of Scone in the care of you, the Commissioners for the keeping of the regalia of Scotland.
But there is a mystery that is about to be discovered. Secret societies have fought for it, murdered for it. The all-seeing eye is said to be a symbol of it. This stone, Jacob's stone, that people have forgotten about. That all the heavy hitters in the world gathered together to see. Well, today we find out where that stone may be. Hello, my friends. Jacob is here once again. Thanks for pressing play, for spending a little time with me, for going on this adventure with me, which is exactly what this is going to be. A crusade, a quest, if you will, for the Stone of Destiny. What is it? Don't worry, I'm going to explain. I did a whole video about this, actually. There's going to be a link below, so you can check it out if you need a little catch-up time. But basically, it's about the Stone of Destiny. It goes by many names. Some call it the Holy Grail. Everybody thinks that the Holy Grail's a cup, right, that held the blood of Jesus, but no! Come to find out, it's the stone. It's Jacob's pillow. It's the stone that Jacob went to sleep on when he was much younger, and he had a dream. So shepherds back in the day, they take a little, they take like a little flat rock, they put like some pelts and stuff on top of it, they go all little night-nights on a pillow. On this stone, in that place, Jacob had a dream. In the dream, there was a staircase, a ladder that appeared to him going up to heaven. And he realized that angels were descending and ascending upon this place that Jacob slept. And he woke up and he said, surely this is the house of God. And he had this great understanding. And he thought that it was so important, he dedicated his life to God, to serving God. Now later in Jacob's life, after serving God, he had amassed a great flocks. He had done all right for himself. He had some kids. He had a couple of wives. And later in his life, it would be like the equivalent of me right about now. God says, go back to the stone. So I did a whole show about this, about the Stone of Destiny, and I explained how I was going to go find it. Because from my research, I understood that that stone was actually in Scotland, a place called Edinburgh Castle. Okay, a little history. This stone, which was Jacob's pillow that he slept on, right? So Jacob was, the founder of the 12 nations. You should know by now, back in the day. Well, this stone became very, very important because it became a great, great people. And so they carried this stone with them, just like they did the Ark of the Covenant. So important it was that this stone is said to be placed in the first temple. And then when it was destroyed, that they wanted it for the second temple. But what happened was they said, no, because it had a crack in it. They didn't think it looked nice. They didn't think it was going to fit well. So it was actually, some say, is the stone that the builders rejected, which metaphorically and symbolically is really talking about Christ, because that's the real stone. But the literal stone, Jacob's literal stone that was being carried around by Moses, right? That Moses is said to have struck this stone so water gushed out so people could drink it. All of it's metaphor and allegory, but they say that it historically literally happened. Now we know that's true because a lot of people have been crowned on this stone, like King David, for example, as well as others, all the way to Elizabeth. The Stone of Destiny. It was a big scandal. People thought that it was stolen, and then there was a fake, and this, that, and the other thing. Well, historically, they say that this stone is now in Scotland, right? And how did it get to Scotland? Well, I talk about it in the first video. I'll give you a little brief summary, okay? So back in the day, okay, when King Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon comes in, he's going to destroy Israel. He's going to destroy this nation. He's going to destroy Jerusalem. He's going to destroy it all, right? Well, Jeremiah had found some favor, so Jeremiah and some others, they get the open door to get out. So one of the daughters of the king, Tefi and others, they escape, and guess what they bring with them? They bring the stone, and it ends up in Ireland. There's historical evidence of this. This is not a joke. That's why a lot of places are named Dan this and Dan that, because it's from the tribe of Dan. So the point is, what I'm saying is, there's a belief that this stone is in Scotland, which catches you up to where I am today. This is an important stone. There's a prophecy about when, the owners return, that the stones will cry out. I made a little joke about visiting Scotland. So much so that when the local news interviewed me on Channel 12 here in Long Island, it's like Long Island's place, shout out Channel 12, when they interviewed me when I was walking through the mall for the Dan shopping for her, and they asked me, where do you want to go for your New Year's? I said Scotland.
Do you have any bucket list items that you want to?
Yes, I want to go to Scotland. Every day for me is a New Year's resolution.
Right, you just want to be a better person.
Yeah. I don't wait till New Year's. Don't wait till New Year's. What's the point?
Just do it.
If you're not living your life for more, you're not living your life.
I like that.
Thank you.
But listen.
I'm here all week. Because I'm shopping for my wife. Hi, honey bear. And I told all of you this. I explained this, that there was a possibility I think it would have been cool. But guess what? The reality is, it's too much money. It's too much money. And I'm not going to come on here and ask all of you to give me money so that I can do that. So I kind of like was half wanting to do it, half not wanting to do it. Danielle and I had talked about maybe taking a weekend, bringing EE to Scotland. I didn't really want to go. But I really, really wanted to see the stone. I really, really wanted to understand why it was such a big deal. And then I see a comment from one of you. That's right, Giant. I'm talking to you, pal. He had left a comment saying that he understood that the stone was not in Scotland, that was a fake, that the real stone is somewhere else. And I immediately was like, hey man, I'm sorry if you thought I ignored your first comment, which I didn't do. I didn't. By the way, a lot of you, when you leave your comments, I do the best. When I go there, if I see it, I comment, and I love it. So you should leave me a comment. You should tell me something, and I'll try to respond. But if I don't respond, it's not because I'm ignoring you. I promise I'm not. So I responded, and I said, well, I'm going to check this out. And I did. And guess what I found out? The Stone of Destiny, the one that I'm destined to see and bring all of you around with me, well, it's a little closer than I thought. Turns out, for all intents and purposes, it's in my backyard, New York City. So Giant tells me about this cool documentary about a code breaker who solved some amazing problem that people for years were trying to uncover, because they said that this code that was hidden in a monument called the Shepherd's Monument, that if anybody understood this code, that it would point the way to the Holy Grail. But we find out that the Holy Grail is actually Jacob's pillow. The documentary is called Lapis Exilis. It's the lost secrets of the Illuminati, and I'll put the link below. But here you have this credible documentary from this codebreaker, this brilliant codebreaker who's pictured with all sorts of forward-thinking people, very bright man. And he solved this challenge, and it led him on a journey to uncover where the stone is. Turns out, it's at the Rorick Master Building, 310 Riverside Drive in New York City, New York. Now, I know a lot of you are going to flock there, just like I am. I'm going to be doing a show, much like the documentary that I saw, and it's going to be coming up in a couple of, in the coming weeks. I'm going to go to this stone. I've already reached out to the museum.
Hello, Nicholas Erick Museum.
Yes, hi, how are you? I'm wondering if maybe there's somebody there. Do you have someone that handles your media? My name's Jacob Israel. I'm doing a show on the museum's namesake. And I was wondering if there was someone there that I could interview.
So the best thing would be you will get immediate answer if you write an email, and then you can get in touch with the person who would be a perfect one. And it's on inquiries@rarick.org.
Yeah, the questions I have to do with, the Stone of Destiny, and there's just such a wonderful history there, and that I've come to learn. And I'd like to go to the building, and I'd also like to, tour the facility, and then have somebody give me some insight into this. Because from all the research I've done, it seems like this is the most likely place for where that stone could be found. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I wouldn't be able to answer. You really have...
I'm going to send that email, see if I can get the director to talk to me about it. But it was interesting how the receptionist said, yes, she knows about the stone, but she can't talk about it. So why would it be at this random place in New York? Well, it turns out the Master Apartments is the name of the place, called the Master Building. It derives from the Master Institute of United Arts, which was founded in 1920 by this explorer, this artist, this very powerful and connected man, Nicholas Rorick. This guy connected to so many people. Let me tell you about as the documentary goes. Okay, spoiler alert. Basically, as the documentary goes, you uncover that Rorik has obtained the stone. Or a part of the stone, and that he made it actually the head of the corner. He made it a cornerstone in his own building, the Master Building, here pictured in 1929. Now, what's remarkably strange about all of this is that Einstein was there. These heads of physics and movers and shakers like Max Planck was there. You want to hear crazy weird? You know the Illuminati all-seeing eye on the dollar bill? Yeah. That cornerstone, right? Rorik, it was his suggestion. He was the one that was instrumental in putting the all-seeing eye there. So it turns out that Jacob's pillow is somehow connected to that as well. The plot thickens. All of these heavy hitters and these major players were there when it was placed there. This is the same year that Einstein came out with his unified theory. He said that this was the most important find, the most important thing that he'd ever done, including his original, theory of relativity. So this stone that King David was crowned upon, that royalty was crowned upon, this stone that people fought for, that people were murdered for, this stone that the Jesuits themselves were said to be wanting a part of, that the Rosicrucian order themselves hired Louis Perry to discover. This stone is waiting right there in New York City. So guess what? We're going to New York City, everybody. We're going to a museum. I'm in the process of putting it together, and I wanted you all to hear about it because this is insane. Because I really, really, really wanted to go to Scotland. Like, I wanted to. My wife was like, honey, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen? What do you think? You're going to have some memory and you're going to find out that you're reincarnated? I'm like, no. Seriously. This is history. This is cool. My name's Jacob Israel for a reason, right? Why not explore and find out if Jacob's Pillow's here? Jacob Israel today from Jacob Israel in the past. The two can become one. Who knows? I think it's fun. And I'm glad that you're along for the ride with me. Thank you, Giant, for pointing that out. And thank you for all of you that are going to like, you're going to comment, you're going to share, you're going to tell your friends, because this is going to be cool. And then maybe I'll wrap it all together in like one long episode so you can find out. Isn't that cool? Right? I thought Scotland's not going to happen, even though I said it on TV. Oh yeah, I want to go. Wasn't going to happen. Now I don't have to go. I'm not going to go because I don't believe the stone is there. I am fully persuaded, if it's real, which I believe it is, that it's right there in my backyard and always has been. I love each and every one of you too, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Jacob Israel. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and share this channel around. If these shows have helped you, help Jacob to reach more any way you can, and have the best day ever.